On two. Ready? Hey!
Welcome. Oh, you're on mute. There you go. There we go.
All right.
Alrighty.
All right, you coming in hot, Brandon?
I'm sorry?
I said I can't hear you for real.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
We good.
You're good?
All right. Cool. Well,
You good?
welcome to the Football Frame of Mind. We have another great interview time segment. It's gonna be fun, man. Like I said, we love doing this because we get a better insight to what the inner workings of a football program is, and we get a better outline of what it is that goes on the everyday side of the football player, the football coach, and so we'll get into football executives, right? So before we get started, man, Brandon, how you doing?
It's good, man. It's a pleasure being here. Well, we really appreciate you, Coach Powell, for taking the time out of your day to spend some time with us and, share some of that insight and, the journey you've had. So thank you so much.
You bet.
Sure. All right. You started out, Brandon. I started out last time.
Okay, that's fine. So, why not just start by telling us a little bit about yourself? Like, how did you get into coaching? And, you've ascended pretty quickly. It seems like through the ranks, different programs and positions. So where did it all get started?
Yeah, I got my start as a high school coach. I coached 2 years of high school football in Indiana. At the time I was playing in the Arena Football League, back. I don't even know if it's still a thing or if it's still around, but I had broke my leg during the 2007 season, and I had gone back to Indiana to rehab for a little bit. And while there, my high school that I had attended, there was a coaching change, and the guy that was taking over was looking for some help and offered me the position of defensive coordinator with them. And so that's how I got my start. And then we kind of rolled from there. So I coached there for 2 years, and then I broke into to college football at Wartburg College in Waverly, Iowa, that was a great break when I look back upon everything, just the what I was able to learn there and the man that I was able to work for there. And I worked with a lot of really good football coaches as well. But yeah, then we kind of got rolling from there, and it moved pretty fast. But yeah, that's where I got my start. What got me into it. I've got a business degree, and so when I finished up playing and I started interviewing for some jobs, it was really the first time in my life that I hadn't been a part of a team, and that I hadn't been a part of competitive sports. And, going back to the time we were, 6 years old playing t-ball, and so when I got the opportunity to start coaching, it kind of seemed more like a natural fit for me, and it sucked me back in. So that's how I broke in. Very fortunate to meet the people that I've met, to work with the people that I've worked with, and the journey that we've been on has been a lot of fun.
That's pretty cool. You seem like you were going to get away from it. It's like, nope, I'm going to pull you back in.
You got it.
No, that's interesting. So being on the defensive side of the ball, right? What's something that you've learned that's important about defense that you've picked up on throughout this coaching journey?
I think more so than the schematics, it's just the way in which you operate. The techniques and the fundamentals, how you communicate, how hard you play, how well you tackle, how well you get off blocks. I think sometimes we all get excited about, a new wrinkle or a new coverage or, the schematics behind it. But I would say, I've coached every level of college football now, and the same things that made us successful, at the high school job, or made us successful in Division III, were the same things that helped us play really good defense in the Big Ten last year. So that, as much as the game evolves, as much as the game changes, I think there are certain things that stay pretty consistent and hold true year after year.
All right. What you got, Terry?
Honestly, I don't have anything more than I'm just gonna listen. I know eventually a question will pop in my head, so you
All
guys
right.
do your thing, and once I have something, I'll raise my hand.
All right.
So, out of curiosity, you made quite a few pit stops along the way to get to where you're at. Like, if you had to say one place you felt like you learned the most and really got you in that zone of where you are now, like, you think you'd be able to name a school that'd be able to say?
It cut out on me a little bit there. You said name the place where you feel like you learned the most.
Yeah, I'd say that. Learn the most, or it made. Obviously, everywhere you go you're gonna pick up something, but maybe a spot where it really helped your development.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point there, I think they've all helped in some way. I think I look back upon the year that I spent last year at Wisconsin with Luke Fickell. I mean, that was really good for my development, and just as the way it was the year before when I was, the coordinator at Western Michigan, and we went to the 12th bowl game in school history. And I spent, I know we were talking about Texas a little bit there before the show started, but, I spent 3 years at Stephen F. Austin, in the year that I spent, at Texas A&M Commerce with, those 4 years with Colby Carthel were, key to my development, especially, in understanding the Division II landscape and how to operate and how to maximize, different areas of your program, and it was also beneficial to be here at Central Washington 10 years ago, and I got a chance to see this program up close and personal for 2 years. So each place has been great. We've been pretty fortunate that we've worked with great people, all over the country. And we've learned too, that there's great people all over the country, probably there's a different, maybe things that you pick up from each place, and each staff that you're part of.
Okay, cool. So I was reading, like I said, your Wikipedia page. Like I said, a lot of stuff sometimes wrong, but hey, it's a good start.
I didn't even know. I had to look up that. I don't know what even is on
there. Yeah, man. No, they got a lot of stuff on it. So, like I said, I asked the questions, just to confirm or deny or nothing, right?
Sure.
But it said that you played linebacker and fullback. So you're a two-way superstar. Got to know.
Yeah. In the Arena League, in the Arena League, you have to play both ways.
Yeah.
So I did in high school. I played offense. I really didn't play defense in high school. I kind of came up the ranks as a quarterback, and then my high school didn't throw the ball much, and there was our running back had gotten in trouble, and so I made the move to running back towards the end of my high school career. But I was one of those bigger running backs that got recruited to play defense in college. And so in college, I played defense. I started off as a safety, and then I got bumped down to linebacker. And so that was my journey. And then, when I played a year in Europe, and that was on the defensive side. And, when the Arena League was that was probably at the height of that league. I was fortunate to break in there. And that was still the Iron Man days where you had to play both sides because you only had 19 guys on your team on game day that were active. And in the substitution rules, basically mandated that, like, if you started the quarter, you could come out, but you could only re-enter once. If you didn't start the quarter, you could enter, but once you came out, you were dead for the rest of the quarter. And so that was like basically forced everybody that was playing, other than their quarterback and we had an offensive specialist and defensive specialist, but other than those guys, it was Iron Man ball. So that's where that comes from. I would say that I was a defensive player, in the outdoor game, and like, what I would probably be viewed as. But yeah, when I was in the Arena League, we were strapping it up on both ways.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Getting down and dirty.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
You got anything, Terry, or what?
Yes, I do. Now, this is going to your current situation with Central Washington. This is kind of like a geographical questions for those who may not know or ever heard of Central Washington. Where are you located? Like also within conjunction of, say, some of the other major cities, like whether it's Tacoma, Seattle, Olympia, or even Spokane out east.
Yeah.
Where is Central Washington located?
Yeah, we're about 90 miles east of Seattle, and the challenge or the unique piece of that is, the mountains are in between us. So you get the Cascade Mountain Range in between, so we sit down in a valley, the Yakima Valley. And so, a lot of times when you're from other parts of the country, people think Seattle and they think, overcast skies, rain, and where we sit, we're actually in the high desert. So we get about 300 days of sunshine a year. And so it's sunny, it gets hot and dry here. And, the climate's actually really, really nice. But yeah, so, it's about to the east side of the state over the Spokane, where you mentioned it's about 3 hours, so it's a little bit of a drive. We do sit right on I-90, so it's, our town is, I think we're a 3 exit town in terms of the interstate, but, that's probably why a lot of people, it's a pit stop when you get over the mountain range, if you're heading east from Seattle, or before you make the trip over the mountain, if you're heading west. But, we've got about 25,000 people that stay here. It's a great community, great people. But yeah, that's where we are.
Sure. All right. So you coach defense throughout your career, right? So what type of player are you looking for now that you've assumed the head role? Like, what player are you looking for?
Yeah. Smart, tough guys that love football. I mean, we talk about being a gritty team, and basically grit is, just the stamina, the drive to push through obstacles until we reach the destination. So those are the types of guys that we're after and what we're looking for of, guys that, I think there's certain position specific measurements and traits that we look for depending upon what we're talking about. But just in general, if we're talking about what would be a Central Washington Wildcat, those would be the traits that we seek.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, do you have a certain preference for a defense you've run? Because obviously you made a few stops around the way. Have you always ran the same kind of defense, or does it base on your personnel or like the team you have? Like, do you have like a base that you like to go with? I know Cam is a big 4-3 or 3-4 kind of guy. So
There you go. Yeah.
3-4 guy, man. Get it right.
You're right. I mean, the system has evolved a little bit over time. It just has the games evolved and the games changed. I mean, we've changed a little bit from the primary coverages that we were playing 15 years ago to what we're playing today. But for the most part, I would say that we're a 4-down team, so the base personnel group would be 4-3. But just the league that we play in, the schedule that we play, we probably spend about 75 to 80% of the snaps in nickel, so you'd say that we're a 4-2-5 base.
Okay.
But yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. I like that.
Nah, 4-2-5 is awesome, man, because it's interchangeable, right? You could go from nickel, you could go to 5-2-5 if you needed to, or 5-5-2. You could go whatever. So I like that. I like that. What you got, Terry?
All right, so this will be my last question, and this is one I gotta go for the night. Let's say, we always want to go. We love college football. We want to go see a home game, Central Washington, and we just obviously we don't want to go for just any old game. We want to see your most hated rival across the field, because we know there's going to be that extra spark and motivation, no matter what the records are, whether you're the winning record, they're not, or if you have the losing record and they're the winning record. However, that doesn't seem to matter during rivalry games. So if we were to go to Central Washington, what's the must-see game for us that, get our money's worth for those who aren't familiar?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to say Western Oregon. The thing about playing Division II football and Division II football here on the West Coast is that there's really only two of us left. When you get west of the Rocky Mountains, when I was here 10 years ago, we were in the Great Northwest Conference. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, we had Humboldt State, which is in Arcata, California. We had Azusa Pacific, which was down there in LA.
Yeah.
And both were really good football teams. But since I've been gone, they've both dropped football, and so really the only two of us left are us in Western Oregon, and we've been playing for a long, long time. And so last year when these two teams met, the game was actually for the conference championship, and Central beat them on the last play of the game. If you haven't seen it, you should. It's a heck of a YouTube clip to watch. But so, yeah, there's a lot of respect there, but also, it's natural rivalries built, year round through recruiting and through competing against each other. We used to play each other twice a year, now it's only once. So that'd be here this year. It'll be here in town. It'll be here in Ellensburg. So it'll be a lot of fun for everybody.
So currently your conference is it the Lone Star Conference or?
We play in the Lone Star Conference.
Okay. Because so your name was actually dropped to me from a coach within your division that we're actually going to have him on next week. And that's Coach Renner from Midwestern State.
Yeah.
And he's the one that got me, in contact with all you guys. And, he's the one we've been talking to him, developing, relationship there. So, I'm glad to have that. And yeah, it's cool. He dropped everyone's names. Like, let's like put light on the Lone Star Conference. So
Yeah, it'll be good. I haven't seen Coach Renner in a number of years, but we'll be excited to see him here. I think this summer we'll get together, there towards the end of July. So it'll be great to see him.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to head out, gentlemen. Appreciate you guys having me. Coach, I'll keep in contact with you. And thank you guys for having me. And happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. So
for sure. Great to meet you, Barry.
Take it easy, brother.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. So, out of curiosity, Central Washington finished last year at 10-2 and 9-0 in the conference, and now you're coming in year one, fresh start, fresh phase. Man, the expectations have got to be pretty high, coming off of a conference championship. Like, what are your expectations coming in fresh start? Obviously, you've been here before, so I've got to imagine that helped a bit.
Yeah,
reacclimate yourself with the situation. But what are your expectations for your squad this year?
I just want us to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. I want us to be the best version of the 2026 Central Washington football team, that we can build, so I'm not going to put any limitations on that. I'm also not going to put any, I'm not going to set the ceiling, and I'm also not going to set the floor, so
exactly open perspective.
The high expectations here are what was exciting about the job, from having been here before. I was a part of a conference championship team and an undefeated team here 10 years ago. And so that experience, the last go around, obviously, gets me excited about what can be done here, but you also know that there's a lot of work that has to, happen between now and then. There's a lot of things that got to go right as well too, so, but we'll be excited, when August rolls around.
Okay. Cool deal.
All right. So, like I said, this journey has been like almost a meteoric rise, right? Like you've worked with some great coaches, you've worked in some great places as well. So what made it the right time to take that step to be a head coach?
Probably, the timing, both personally and professionally, I think, I was fortunate, like you mentioned, to go from Division III all the way to the Big Ten and work in a lot of great places, work with a lot of great coaches. The downside to that was that I moved my family a lot. And I'm married. I've got 4 children. And I think just where we were at personally, and then, the professional side of already having worked at this university once before, I think we felt like it was a good fit for us on both ends of it. We felt like it's a good fit both personally and professionally. And, the timing is everything, right? And so for us on this situation, I think the timing just lined up with where we were at.
Okay. No, that's interesting because, being, like I said, being in, such I'd say a volatile kind of employment, because especially when you're not the head guy, sometimes you don't get to go to the next stop, So
Yep.
I imagine that's tough for the family, right? But like I said, being the head guy, like I think that's pretty awesome, because it's like you worked all the way up,
Yeah.
you worked all the way up to it, man, and that's pretty cool. So, I said, what you got, Fred?
I've got a two-parter here, so I want to kind of touch on your last stop. You were speaking on you were coaching under Luke Fickell. Like, what was that like being under him? Because we've kind of followed his journey too, to obviously being able to go to the Big Ten now. How was it coaching under him? And then, what would you say was the most hostile environment y'all went into while you were at Wisconsin?
That's a good one. Luke Fickell was great to me, and Coach is he's a defensive guy, so
yeah, he sure is.
he's involved in all of our defensive meetings. He's involved in how you're going to play a certain technique, to the schematics, to just the fundamentals of each position, and I think just his approach every day, the detail that he coaches the team with, and it was great for me, and I'll be forever thankful for the year that I spent with him, and then also just how he treated myself and how he treated my family. So but yeah, it was every day was great learning and growing, great for my development and great for our growth, so the hostile environments, I mean, that's a tough one, last year we went to Tuscaloosa, and that's no joke. We went to Ann Arbor, and that one's pretty good too. Eugene, Oregon was no slouch. Those are probably the first 3 that come to my mind. The year before, when I was at Western Michigan, we made the trip to Columbus, Ohio. And, that one is also, that's probably the most daunting, but probably what makes that one so daunting is the 11 guys that they put out there on offense are, when you got to cover that guy that wears number 4 and try to tackle that, you're trying to tackle the guy, number 32, and, the 5 guys that they have up there on the offensive line. That's what makes that one so daunting, let alone that you're doing it in front of 110,000 people. But
man, you got to be locked in. Like, I've got to imagine that's a very intense week of practice. Like, look, man, we've got a squad. Like, we have to be locked in. We have to be cutting all mistakes and try to be as opportunistic as possible.
It's the best group of wideouts maybe that's ever been assembled. I mean, Jeremiah Smith's going to be the number 1 pick, I think, in the draft next year. I'm not sure where Emeka got picked at last year, but I think he was probably a second rounder.
Actually, he squeaked into the first round.
Did he?
And then Tate was a top 5 pick this year. So
yeah. So all 3 wideouts that you're trying to defend are all first rounders. I think both running backs got picked in the second last year with Carl. I think the Hendersons with the Patriots, and I think didn't Juckins get picked by the Browns?
Yep.
So, and then the tight ends and, the quarterback, I know Pittsburgh drafted him, I think. So, yeah, it was, they were good.
Yeah, that's a tough week of practice, bro. It's like, hey, man, look, pick your poison. What do you want? Yeah. what you gonna do?
Yep.
We're gonna play. You gotta play our game, or That's it. Just play the best sound football. 11
Let alone
hats.
they weren't too bad on the other side of the ball either. So
No.
I mean, I would imagine so.
you don't get a lot. You don't get a lot of time to fix an issue if something goes wrong.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Very true.
So, like I said, I've been doing like some reels and shorts lately of a lot of players, past, present, future, right? But some have come from Louisiana Tech. So I'm curious, what was that stop like? Like what was that? What is that community like when it comes to Louisiana Tech football?
Yeah, Ruston's a small town. I mean, I think that was, probably one thing when I hadn't been to that area much before. Nacogdoches, where we were at, when we were at Stephen F. Austin, it's only about 2 hours from Nacogdoches over to Ruston. So that area, you're in the same vicinity, but you don't cross over much. Just because when I was at SFA, we primarily stayed in Texas. So. I think Ruston, there's 8,000 people that live there. So there's one public school in town. There's one, smaller private school, but, so just the closeness, that everybody lives in, but there was great people there. We enjoyed our time living there. My kids still have close friends, from their time there in school, but and Louisiana Tech's another program that's they're very proud. There's a lot of history and tradition there. From Terry Bradshaw to Willie Rove to, I think you're probably talking about like L'Jarius Sneed and Amit Groverson and some of those guys. I did not have a chance. They were gone before I got there, but yeah, it was a great community to live in.
Yeah, it's kind of like us in Homer, huh? Brandon?
Small town. Give or take. Ruston's more country. That's pretty up there, North Louisiana, but it's the same concept for sure.
I think that's the thing that when you're not from Louisiana, that you learn is that it's almost like two different states. When you start talking about South Louisiana and North Louisiana.
North Louisiana is almost considered like South Arkansas at that point.
Yeah. Because most of our players come from, South Louisiana. From that Lafayette, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, that's where most of the population is. And when you go down there to recruit, a lot of times you're just people are like, hey, I've never been up there. I don't know much about it. So
okay,
y'all had some good defenses though, man. Like y'all were ranked really high. I think y'all were top 25 in scoring defense. I think your last year there, if I'm not mistaken. Like, was it hard to recruit defensive players there? Did y'all strictly just play South Louisiana, or did y'all reach into Texas and some of these other places?
Yeah, we would go everywhere to look for guys.
Okay.
So the recruiting landscape for Central Washington, right? You've, like I said, you've been everywhere. You've done a lot. So do you still keep those relationships with everywhere that you recruited?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's, coaching and much like probably when you look for a carpenter or, an electrician, a lot of times it's a referral business, and so I'm starting to get to the age now to where there's players that I coached that are, they've got, their high school coaches or their trainers. And so I just got a phone call today about a referral. Hey, check my guy out. And, I'm going to share this name with you. So yeah, it's, you try to maintain relationships, whether we're talking about Texas, whether we're talking about the Midwest, or whether we're talking about the Northwest here. And some of it too is just, it's kind of why you got into it is, I never really had the next job or the next spot in mind. It was always just trying to do a good job where you were because of, the connection with the players that are there. And so I think when the connection is correct and the relationships are built right, then it's kind of natural that those relationships last forever.
Okay. we talk about the modern system of college football. Obviously, it's changed a lot, even since you've been in the ranks and moving up. Is NIL really a big factor for Central Washington? Because we talked to Michigan Tech's head coach last week, and he's like, it's a thing, but we don't really get into it like that. They're just really looking for players that genuinely want to be there outside of NIL.
I'm sorry, it cut out a little bit on me. I don't know if y'all could hear me okay, but
Yes,
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, so it was so we talk about in this modern age of college football how NIL is so prominent. Now, obviously, at different levels, it's going to vary. We spoke with Michigan Tech's head coach last week, and he said it's a thing, but they don't really get in. It's more about finding the players who just genuinely want to be there. Is NIL a major factor at all in Central Washington, or not so much?
No, and obviously I'm coming from the Big Ten, right? And I'm coming from Division I, where, I've got experience with that, and knowing what that looks like. And I would say here in Division II, that's not really, it's not going to impact the game here like the way that it does, at the level above us, So this is more so about, the holistic development of a student athlete, from the man to the player to the student. And, these guys are taken care of with, their scholarships and things like that. But no, it's not, you're not getting into the collectives and the contracts that they are in the Big Ten.
I've got to imagine that makes things a lot less of a headache too. Guys are coming there because they genuinely want to play and develop as players, get an education, try to whether move on to the next level or transfer, things like that. So
yeah, I think it makes the recruitment process. It's still, consistent with maybe what it used to be like 15, 20 years ago, where there's not third parties. It's straight line recruiting from the coach to the prospect to us, and you're not having to go through and visit with agents, and that's just not really what's going on here.
That's good though. I've got to imagine that's much less of a headache, and that's good because it makes you feel like you've kept the time clock turned back, and you can still enjoy and recruit the same way it's mostly been done.
For sure, 100%.
Nah, I miss the old days with the fax machine, man. Like, you sit there, you gotta wait for the fax to come through. Like,
now that has even. Yeah, that has even Division II. Nobody's faxing anything anymore.
Well, that's good.
No, that's cool. That's cool. So I was reading, like I said, going through it. It says you were a two-time first team all conference, right? So I gotta know, what did that mean to you?
Oh, I was fortunate. When I made, because I transferred too, so I do understand the transfer situation, because I went through coaching changes when I was a student athlete, and so when I transferred, when I made the decision to finish at Hanover, the number one thing on my mind that I wanted was a conference championship ring. And, I had teammates and friends that had one, but I did not. And so what I would testify there is that when you focus on team success and, with team success, individual accomplishments and individual recognitions come. And I would say I was a byproduct of that, that the all conference stuff and the all American stuff, that was great, but that was not really at the forefront of what I was chasing. I was chasing, a conference championship, something that I can put on a ring I can put on my finger forever. And that's what I feel fortunate to be a part of.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
I've noticed everywhere you go, it's like you guys are just always forcing turnovers. Like, is that like what goes into that? Like, what's the mentality? Like, what are you getting to your players? Because I'm seeing, whether it's at Western Michigan, whether it's at Louisiana Tech or wherever, it's like there's interceptions, there's forced fumbles, like you're leading conference in turnovers. Like, what goes into that? And like, how are you getting your players to just buy into, man, we want to be opportunistic and turn the ball over?
Yeah, I absolutely think that's coached, and so ball disruption is one of our fundamentals and core pieces of the defense, and it's something that we emphasize. I mean, it does tie into some of the schematics, and maybe some of the style in which we play defense and some of the coverages and, some of the pressures that we lean to or that we lean on maybe a little bit more than others, have some vision on the ball. But, excuse me. But in terms of like, attacking the ball, having the ball on our mind and being ball aware, those are things that we coach every day.
I love that because it's like, man, that can turn that can turn the whole game around. You could be down and out, and that one turnover could give you a spark and end up winning you that game. So that's something I always like about defense is like how opportunistic are we going to be and how focused on the ball and really creating havoc,
Yeah. You better be good on third down. You better be able to take the ball away from people if you want to get yourself off the field.
It's true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Like that, I love defenses that cause havoc, Like even the little things. It's not even about always sacking the quarterback, things like that, but messing up the timing consistently. I love it. I love it. Like, so that's my favorite part of defense, man. So, so like I said, your journey through high school, like being, like I said, going through the ranks, right? So what fundamentally has changed in high school that you've seen over time that necessarily isn't a good thing that you would love to see kind of like fixed in a sense?
It's a good question. I don't know if anybody's asked me anything about it. I've been doing this a long time, almost 20 years. I'm not sure I've asked that question before, and it might be partly by where I grew up too, but there was so much pride in our high school team and building a champion, building a winner. And whether it was the football team or the basketball team or the baseball team, that the thought of transferring to a different high school, that never was on like my group that I, ran around with. Like that would have never been on the discussion. It was how do we get our team better and being able to compete against maybe our rival schools across town. So the transferring from school to school, is not something that I get on board with. And we had, friends that were across town, but when we stepped on the field of competition with those guys, like we wanted to beat them, like we never thought about trying to join them. So, I see that as something, and then I probably would share the sentiments of a lot of other people each year talk about in terms of the specialization. And man, I love playing baseball. I love playing basketball. And I try to get my kids to play everything that they can. So I sure hope that kids get the opportunity to play all sports and they don't have to, be forced into playing just one or specialize in too young, that they still get a chance to, I don't know if they even know what their best sport's going to be until they get later on in their high school years, so I would hate for them to have to make a decision early on.
That's true. That's very true. How was it being at Western Michigan? Because I feel like the MAC is kind of an underrated conference that gets overlooked a lot, and it really doesn't get a whole lot of shine. And Western Michigan's kind of one of those schools that's kind of flown under the radar too, and they've pushed out some NFL talent. How was your time coaching in that conference for that team? If you don't mind
the MAC was fun. We gave Wisconsin all they could handle there. Run for the money week one. We started off that 24 season, I think 4-0 in the MAC, and we were right in the thick of the championship hunt, and then stumbled a little bit there late in the year. We got beat at home on one of those MACtion games by Northern Illinois. I think we played Northern Illinois on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and then we had to turn around and go to Bowling Green, like that very next week, and play them on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and so we got beat a couple times there late in November that cost us a chance to play for a championship. But we beat Eastern Michigan the last week of the year, and that's what made us bowl eligible. So it was a very competitive league. I think everybody in that league has guys that are probably going to play on Sundays, and then everybody in that league probably has a few guys out there that they're trying to, hide or make sure that they don't get them put in a bad position too, so you got both ends of the spectrum, and injuries from one week to another in that league can make such a difference, because some of those, NFL guys that you got, if you get them banged up, that can be really impactful. And so health plays a big factor there of who's healthy in November, but yeah, it was a really fun league. It was, I grew up in the Midwest, so being able to play, against coaches that I had relationships for a long time, be able to, recruit areas that I had known for a long time, that was a lot of fun. And we enjoyed Kalamazoo. We enjoyed the people that were in Kalamazoo. And we had a successful, we made the 12th bowl game in school history the year that we were there. So, everybody was pretty pleased.
Heck yeah.
So Terry asked a pretty good question, right? So I've got to take his question and kind of mold it into my own, right? So, as you know, in college, every guy, every lady is learning themselves, right? And mistakes happen, right? So a player coming from Division I, right? He has to find other options, and he comes to Central Washington, right? How do you curb his idea that I'm big league, right? But I have to come. How do you get him to buy in to the what Central Washington is offering?
Yeah. Well, you got to be where your feet are, and so, like it or not, this is where you are now. And if you're going to be a member of our football team, there's certain non-negotiables that each member of our team is going to operate under, that umbrella. And we're fortunate here that the tradition and the history of our place, it's been such that there's been a lot of really good football players, roll through here. And so whoever comes through, if they're fortunate enough to go play in the National Football League, they won't be the first guy that's done that. If they wind up playing in Canada, they won't be the first guy that's done that. We've had, I think we've won, 42 conference championships. Central's won a national championship. We've had 6 Harlan Hill nominees. We just had a guy 2 years ago win the Cliff Harris Award as the best small college defensive player in the country.
Heck
We
yeah.
had a center last year win the Remington Award for Division II. So we've had national award winners. We've had, professional players. We've had success on the national scene, so there's some, background here that, people, when they walk in the building and they see some of the jerseys that are on the wall and they hear some of the history of the place where they're at, there's some feeling of like, okay, I've got some things I got to live up to.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, I'm just curious. Are there aspirations to go to like Division I at some point, the NFL, or you kind of just? I feel like you kind of just been taking it job by job, and it's like whatever comes is whatever comes. But I'm going to do the best I can wherever I'm at.
Yeah, that's the mindset. We don't we don't really look too far ahead. I think that's, we've been fortunate to be able to, be exposed to a lot, and we've seen a lot, and this is a really good place, and we're fortunate to be in the position that we're in here, and just want to do the best job that we can here in Ellensburg at Central Washington.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So you mentioned that you played in Europe, right? So
Yeah.
I gotta ask, what was that? What was the experience like playing in Europe, right? And what was the football like over there? Is the environment like that? Do they really love it like that?
It's a long time ago now. It was cool. It was much different. I had gone through the NFL Pro Day, and I had gone to Purdue's Pro Day, and I worked out there, and then I sat through the draft weekend, and my phone never rang, and so then about a couple weeks after that, my agent had called and said, "Hey, I got a deal for you over in Europe if you're interested in." And so away we went. And And so we went over there, and I was with great people. I was teammates with one of my college teammates. We played on the same team,
That's cool.
and so we enjoyed that experience. We got to go through the experience together. We were over there for about 4 months, but we only played, I think, 12 games in the 4 months we were there. I mean, we had a bye weekend just about every other weekend. And so what that gave us the opportunity to do was to just experience summer in Scandinavia, we went to concerts, we went on a cruise, we went to Sweden, because we played in Finland, so
Yeah.
we were in the southwest corner of the country, and I think there's only 5 million people that live in that country, so it's pretty small, but we were just able to be exposed to a lot and meet a lot of really cool people, and they took great care of us, and just fun experience.
Okay. Would you recommend that to anybody that wants to keep their football, playing life going? Would you recommend it?
Absolutely. Yeah. At that time too, I mean, there was no, I guess the Arena League was kind of up and going, but this would have been the summer of 2004. And so, I mean, there's only, 32 companies, right? Or there's only 32 employers to play in the National Football League. And so if you're not good enough to play for one of those 32, there's only so many football playing jobs in the world. And so, yeah, if you love the game, it's one of those things that the game provides for you. And, one of the things that the game gave me that, I'm thankful for, it was never something I envisioned or never something I thought I would do, but I'm really grateful and really glad that I had the opportunity to do it.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That's cool.
What coach at the college level, is there something that you prioritize as like the most rewarding thing about your job? Because I mean, sometimes you talk to some coaches like, well, winning's the most important. Some people it's like developing players or having those relationships with those players. Like, what's one thing for you I feel like is like the most rewarding about your job?
Yeah, developing players. I mean, making sure that when you get them at 18 years old, right, that probably one of the biggest phases of their life, in terms of just development of, you think about when we were 18 years old and things that we didn't know and areas of our life that we had to grow in. And then you hope that when they come out at 22, 23, that they're close to being able to go attack life on their own, and so just being a part of their growth and a part of their journey and development, that's the part that you take serious, and I think things that, that we ask them to do every day, and ask them to do things the right way and teaching them how to handle some adversity and push through some things that might be hard. I think that can't get lost on any of us.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I said, Texas is such a big state for football, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm currently in Texas, right? So I kind of see it all the time, right? So how deep is the talent pool in terms of like a person that's in your field coaching, right? Like how deep is that field really as far as
You're talking where I'm at now, or you're talking in Texas?
just Texas in recruiting period? Like when you're going
Yeah.
there looking for players, whatever, like how big is the talent pool?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Houston's the fourth biggest city in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where DFW and the Metroplex is at, but it's pretty large too, so yeah, there's a lot of players to choose from, and kids down there, right? It's put into them from a very young age. And so they understand what commitment level looks like or what the requirements and expectations look like to be a part of the football team, and and from a recruitment standpoint, what you really enjoy there is just that, when you go into the high schools, they take care of you, they treat you well. And I really enjoyed recruiting all parts of Texas. I enjoyed recruiting Houston. I enjoyed recruiting East Texas. I enjoyed recruiting DFW. I just had a phone conversation with a guy last week that was calling me about he was up in Texarkana, and so we were talking about Pleasant Grove and Texas High and Liberty ILU, and so I've been all over the place down there. Yeah, I don't have a negative thing to say about recruiting Texas.
Oh no. I mean, I was just curious.
Where do you live?
I'm about 30 miles from Fort Worth.
Going which way?
So I'd probably say Fort Worth is probably east, because I'm in Cleburne. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's pretty cool. Like I said, I get to see. I think North Crowley is close to me, and they were one of the best teams last year. So that's pretty cool. Like I said, I don't know how good the town high school I'm in is, but they had a lot of players get all state. So a couple players get all division or something like that. So I thought that was cool. I was like, all right, cool. So I just be supporting. I'm like, hey, when the lights is on, I try to go to some games. So I like it.
I've seen you had some players you've coached along the way make it to the league. I've got to imagine that's a pretty rewarding feeling. You be able to imprint on players and develop them and be able to see them get to the next level, whether it be to the draft, undrafted free agent. Like, I've got to imagine that's got to feel really good.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool deal. Last weekend we had two. We had a corner that I recruited. That we recruited him to Stephen F. Austin, and he was picked in the 5th round by Minnesota. And I coached him his freshman year. And then there was a defensive tackle that we had at Western Michigan that was picked in the 6th round by the Falcons. He's 5th or 6th round by the Falcons. And so we had two last weekend. We've had a couple others along the way. I think now I've coached 4 or 5 NFL draft picks. So it's, that's almost every one of these kids. That's their dream. When they come out of high schools, they want to choose a coach. They want to choose a place that can help them get them to that level. Mm-hmm. And it's really rewarding. It's really cool when you see it come to life for somebody.
That's pretty cool.
Nah, that's awesome, man. It's like
you get to see the final product.
Yeah, it's like, man, I remember him. A little freshman picking his nose.
It's cool when you sat in their house, when you sat in their living room and talked to them about, like, hey, yes, it can happen now. It takes work, but it and then you see it actually unfold for somebody. It's a pretty cool moment.
Okay. So I'm curious, recruiting wise, right? So like I said, I'm pretty sure you've been in a lot of families' living rooms. So when you're approaching the player, right, how important is it that the player understands where they are, right? Do you have to talk to them about where they are, or do you have to taper their expectations sometimes? Like, how does that go? How do you merge?
You mean like where they are at that current moment in terms of like their readiness to help you?
Yeah, what you're looking for in a player, right? So how much do you gauge their potential versus where they could be, what I'm saying, or where they are right now?
Yeah. I think we view ourselves as a recruit, retain, develop operation, where we want to be able to bring guys in at 18 years old and then help them throughout the course of their college career be, pro ready by the time they're 22, 23 years old, and what pro ready can mean is a lot of different things for different players. It can be like some of those guys we just talked about, where it means they're going to be a 5th, 6th round draft pick. It can also mean that they're, ready to go into the workforce and work at Amazon. They're pro ready they're ready for the real world. But I think to start that process, it absolutely they have to be aware of like, hey, this is where you currently are. This is the floor, and it doesn't, it's not going to set the ceiling. It's not going to set the limits for you. But, we've got to make sure that in order for you to maximize yourself and for us to, help our team, that, these are the areas that we feel like we're strengths right now. And we got to find ways to continue adding upon these. And these might be some areas that we're deficient in. And hey, let's have a good action plan, put together that we can, minimize these.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't want to hold you up a whole lot longer. I know you're a busy guy, but I'm just curious. And obviously, you've seen a lot of different quarterbacks. You've seen a lot of different teams. But, like, if you could go back in your Rolodex in your mind, like, is there a quarterback you feel like that you really had to go the extra mile to prepare your defense for? Because I feel like I feel like everybody's got that one guy you're like, man, I know this guy's going to give me fits, or, like, I have to prepare that much more, whether he's a dual threat or if he's a pocket pass, he could throw 60 yards on his knees. Like, is there anybody that rings a bell in your mind? Like, man, this guy was like that guy.
Yeah, it's a long list, but Cam Ward, he turned out to be okay, didn't he?
Yeah.
We played him. When he was at Incarnate Ward, or
Yep, we played him in the first round of 21, the FCS playoffs. We went to overtime with him, and so he was a good one. I think even back here in 2017, we played a guy named Luis Perez that wound up winning Division II, Harlan Hill. He was a pretty good one. In 21 at SFA, we played Tyler Shuck, who's with the Saints now. He was a pretty good one. I'm going through my mind there. In 22, we played Clemson and DJ. I'm going to have his last name.
DJ.
Yeah. He was a pretty good player. He was so big and strong. And then, obviously last year in the Big Ten, right? I mean, Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, it's a who's who of every week you're seeing, I don't want to leave somebody out, but it's every week they got a good player.
That's got to be a really tedious process, though, because it's like you're playing to what their weaknesses and your strengths are, and you're really having to just look at the nitty gritty and figure out, like, what can I do to disrupt their rhythm, and how can I get them off their rocker, and how can we disrupt what they have going on,
I mean, I guess when you think about it, I just made this mistake, just not have Mendoza was the number one pick this year, right? And then last year Cam Ward was the number one pick last year, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I've seen the number one pick in the draft the last 2 years.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
With Mendoza and Cam Ward. So yeah, I mean, those guys, the thing that you learn from competing against them is like you got to be careful with the coverages that you play because they're so good.
We're gonna pick you apart.
If you're not matching routes and putting bodies on bodies in coverage, that they're so accurate that the ball will get lasered in there, and you're going to watch a lot of completions.
I gotta imagine that pisses you off too, because it's like, man, you might get in rhythm. And it's like, man, you give them too much time or this busted coverage, and you just watching. You're like, oh, dude, like we could have prevented that. Like, I don't want to see that.
Yes, but the competition side of it's fun too. Like that. When I think back to that 21 playoff game we played Cam, like competing against guys like that it's fun.
And to see his development too, to bet on himself and start from the bottom. A lot of people thought he was going to come out the year before, and he bet on himself, and look where he's at now. So it's pretty cool to see. You don't really see that kind of stuff. Like back in the day, you'd see guys play like JUCO or HBCUs, and they'd end up being great players. But to see that development, that's got to be pretty cool. So
yeah, he deserves it.
Yeah. So it was be my last question, but like I said, you've done so much. So it's like we could go through a whole book about all the stuff that you've done. But I want to know, like, what's a player throughout your journey that you saw as I'd say a blank canvas, and at the end of the season, they were a Picasso painting. Like, what's the biggest growth of a player that you've seen throughout your run?
Oh man, that's a hard one. It's like, you're picking through, your children, I mean, it's because they all mean so much to you. You probably could go from year to year of just the growth and development. I mean, last year, at Wisconsin, I just coached the Nichols, so I was able to see that room's growth and development from start to finish. The year before, I think about Bilal Kone, who, had never really started before and became a 1-year starter, but then turned into a 6th-round draft pick, of the Ravens. I think in 23 and 22 at Louisiana Tech, I think about Willie Roberts and, some of those other guys that, Willie was a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, and, some of the other guys that we had there that kind of, grew and developed over time. Stephen F. Austin, that there's so many of them, there. I mean, that group of guys that was really special because we were, they believed in us when we went to SFA, that program was struggling. And so they believed and they signed on with us, when we weren't great. And we took that team in year 3 to the playoffs, so that core group of defense of, Brevin Randall, Miles Hurd, who played, got a shot with the Giants. BJ Thompson was a 5th-round draft pick. Jeremiah Walker played with the Bears. Willie Roberts got a chance with the Seahawks. Miles Brooks got a chance with the Cowboys. I think about Burt Morris from out there in Amarillo. Ahmad Murray was from Huntsville. Rayshad Nichols played for the Ravens. He was from Louisiana. He's over there near Lafayette. LaRon Cox was from South Dallas. Just a lot of guys there during that run. And, Commerce, Kader Kohu is still playing for the Miami Dolphins. We got him out of Euless Trinity there, and he was a really good player for us. And, that team there was loaded, with Division II talent. And then here, the success that we had in 16 and 17 here, with a lot of guys that, were unselfless and they were selfless and really motivated to get Central Washington back on track. So yeah, there's a lot of guys I could point to over the years that, that sure do mean a hell of a lot to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna hold you up on as long as my last question. So you being here before and you being able to come back and be able to run the ship, I've got to imagine that made the decision really easy because you're already familiar. You've been here before. You've recruited here before, and I've got to imagine there was a sense of confidence. Like, man, I know what I'm getting myself into to an extent. I've been here. I've got to imagine you felt really good about coming in. And has it been easy to adjust now because you've been here before?
Well, I felt really good about the leadership, just because I was familiar from being here before. I felt really good about, the foundation of the program because, I was a part of building it. The guy that I was replacing was our O-line coach when I was on staff the last time. So, kind of knew, probably, what was being done. I was familiar and, with the recruiting areas and the recruiting base, from being here before. I was familiar with the conference, right, from having worked in the conference before too. So there just weren't a lot of unknowns, and even having in personal life living here before, so I think, just the transition, has been seamless or maybe easier than some just because of the familiarity that's already there.
Okay. Cool deal.
Yeah, that's all I got, Coach. That's all I got. This has been fun, man. This has been fun.
Well, it was great to meet y'all.
Oh, yes, sir. It was
yeah, of course, man. We're gonna definitely keep tabs on how your team does, man. And we'd love to have you back on, man. Like just to go over the first season,
Sure.
like just to ups and downs and like just to see what's next, So we would love that.
You got it.
If time permits, of course.
You got it. You got it. Maybe we'll be able to connect and cross paths. You know, we'll be down there in Texas, I think 4 times next year. So maybe we'll be able to cross paths here at some point.
Oh,
You
yes,
heard
sir.
that, Brandon? Hop on the highway. It's right there.
Okay, that's cool. That's right there. That's not far.
All right. Well, you guys have a happy Mother's Day and have a great rest of your weekend.
All right,
You
same
too,
to you,
Coach.
Coach.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye, sir. All right. Well, that is another one in the books. Coach Scott
the books.
Power. I keep wanting to say Powers in my head, but I have to say, like, I forget there's no S at the end. But that was fun, man. He offered a different perspective, so it was cool interviewing an offensive guy last week, and now you get to interview a defensive guy. But man, he's freaking. I don't know if you looked at the stats. Like everywhere he's gone defensively, they've like led conference like in turnovers and this. Like he very sound defensive guy. And getting the coach in the Big Ten in that kind of environment, I've got to imagine coaching at this level. He's like, man, it's gonna be not gonna say a cakewalk, but I've got to imagine there's a level of confidence and comfortability. It's like, man, I coached at the biggest level. And now I get to come here and run the show. It's like, nah, we got something good, you know.
Yeah, it's like you like at the pick of the litter, you know what I'm saying? Like you can get all the players you want, right? It's right there.
He's got relationships, and that was the good thing about him moving around like he
Definitely
was.
did.
That was the perk of him being like, and those are 2 hotbeds for talent too. Coaching in Texas and Louisiana, you've already got your hand in both of those.
And then Cali right there.
Yep.
So so I just imagine like how many players he can get his hands on, man. Like
I like him. I like his vibe. I feel like he's cool, but I feel like when he walks in the building, it's straight business, bro. Like we ready to like he's modest, but I'm like, I gotta imagine like when you in that war room, it's like, oh yeah, we about to expect this, and that's what you gonna give me. This. Nothing
like
less.
If it ain't 100%, I don't want you. You know what I'm saying? If you ain't giving 100%,
But getting that kind of production out of your defense consistently, it means you're doing something really good. And like jumping like that, like some people be like, oh, he's just jumping around. I'm like, nah, but it's been upgrades. Like coach defense at Wisconsin, that's a huge deal. And who's to say if he doesn't have success here, he could maybe find himself coaching a smaller D1, like a group of 5 or something. You just never know.
All right. Yeah,
It was
so
cool.
it was fun, man. That was fun. Like I said, I enjoyed it.
It was fun.
But yeah, man. Like I said, another one in the books. Like I said, I think we got one next week.
Yep. We so if you like this kind of content, if you enjoyed this interview, smash the like button, follow, subscribe. If you didn't see last week, we had Michigan Tech head coach Dan Metlock. If you haven't already watched it, go back and watch it before next week. That was a really good one as well. His journey was really cool. We keep hitting these coaches who played in the Arena League. I don't know. Next week, we're going to have Rich Renner from Midwestern State in Texas. Same place, same time. I don't think he has, but that would be something. And he played in Europe. And I think when you brought that up, I always think about how me and you said we used to love like NFL Europe and stuff. Like that's the first thing I thought about, you know, and that's cool. Being that he got to play here, he got to play there, and then he didn't even think he was going to be in the coaching and got hooked in at the high school level, and then it's like zoop, just went straight up from there.
Bro, we gotta get East Texas A&M coach, man, Clint Dolezal, I think that's his name, but I remember him lighting shit up in arena football. We gotta talk to him, bro.
Told Terry he needs to reach out to Delaware State and Norfolk State, if you catch my drift. Who's at those places?
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yep.
That will be nice.
Or Southern. You know who's at Southern now?
I forgot. No, Marshall, ain't it?
Marshall Falk.
Yeah.
So just saying.
Yeah, definitely. He
kind of strikes me as like a guy like Coach Metlock. I think he just really enjoys coaching at the college level. But he's such a defensive mind that he probably could transition to the league at some point if he wanted to.
So he's 40?
He's young.
So I mean, what like I said, the coaching carousel moves fast, right?
Mhm.
So think about it, right? You just got this job, you do good here.
Say within 2 years, you get a group of 5 offer. You're still early 40s.
Because it's not that like he's young, but he's picked up a
No,
lot
but
of
he's got
stuff.
quality experience though.
You
He's
know what
coached
I'm saying?
at good. Well, he coached what? LA Tech is now in the Sun Belt, but he was in Conference USA, he was in the MAC, and
Yeah.
he was in the Big Ten. That's quality experience, and I feel like
That's within the last 5 years.
that's what I'm saying. He, like you said, meteoric rise. Like he's been shooting up,
Yeah.
and Central Washington
Right
won.
on.
Central Washington won 10 games last year. They were undefeated in conference, 9-0.
Yeah.
So he's walking into a pretty good situation.
So their coach, the last coach, he went to Portland State. So
That's a bigger FCS school.
yeah, so I mean, hey, it's
Be a
just
stepping
good.
stone.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm anxious to see how he does stuff.
But that's a good situation to walk into. You're already familiar there. You've been there. You've worked there. And the team's coming off of winning a conference title. So it's a good place to get your feet wet as your first actual gig, you know?
I agree, man. But yeah, man, like I said, if you like this kind of content, man, check it out. Like I said, we do live streams, man. We do game streams. Like I said, we got the music thing going on. We do all kind of shit on this channel. So y'all just continue to support us, and we're gonna continue to give y'all good content, man. So
Yep.
like I said, man, we will see y'all on the next one.
Same time,
And
same place. Like I
same
said,
time,
and we
same
got
place.
interviews. We've got interviews all the way until the 2nd or 3rd week of June. So if you like this kind of stuff, come back and check it out. Like I said, Rich Renner, Midwestern State next week. I think the week after that, we have a high school recruit. He's committed. And then we have Coach Huggins after that. And then we got some other, but I'm not going to get into all that yet. But yeah.
Yes, sir. We gonna be good, but
Yes,
all
sir.
right, Blake. We'll be back on the next one, man. Peace out.
Peace.